The next concept and functionality that I want to talk about is pivots. Pivots and pivot tables are a very powerful way of analyzing and structuring the data that you have. So this is a small table, but suppose you have got large data sets with thousands of rows and tens of columns. A pivot table can help you structure that data and consolidate the data. Let's see how. You can create a pivot table by going to the Insert tab, and the first option that you see is a pivot table. And you can see the description that Excel provides you. Easily arrange and summarize complex data in a pivot table. Let's click on it to see what happens. The first thing is a pop-up that comes up where it will ask you what is the table that you want to analyze. Now, note that we had already selected the table before we clicked that, and so it has pre-filled that value. If we had not selected the table, you could easily click on this field here and then select the table or the range that you want to analyze. The next important decision you need to make is whether you want to put the analysis, the pivot table, in a new worksheet, which is this, if you remember, or an existing worksheet, which is the same sheet that we are looking at. So I will go for an existing worksheet, and I will use this column here, this cell here to begin my pivot table analysis. And then that's it. I just click OK. So there are a couple of things to note here. One is on the top in the tabs, you see two tab values that have come up and they are new. One is the pivot table analyze and the other is the design. We are more concerned with the pivot table analyze, and in this ribbon you will be able to change the data. So in this case this is the data, or you'll be able to refresh the data, and you'll be able to create and update the pivot. What is refresh? So pivot table takes this data, creates a snapshot of it, and shows you the analysis. In case you change something in the data, it does not automatically get updated. You will have to refresh it, and we'll see that. The other important thing is here on the right side, there is a fields list which can be toggled. So you click on it, the fields list goes away. You click on it again, the fields list comes here. And it will show you all the columns that you have in your table. So in this case, we have got 3 columns in the table: the serial number, month, and sales. And then it has got 4 boxes: the filters that you want to apply, the columns that will be there in that you want in your summary table, the rows that you want in your summary table, and the values that you want to be calculated and how they should be calculated. So let's say my first filter, we will try multiple pivot tables. Let's say I want to filter for month. So I apply month. So you can see that it has created something like this here. And then I want to apply sales. Either you can check this or you can drag it to the box that you want. Let's say I want to put it in values. So Here it automatically creates a filter, and by default it has selected all the months. You can see it. If you want to select 1 or 2 months only, or a few, you can just select this checkbox here, click select multiple items, and then select the months that you want to select or deselect. So in this case, you can, let's say you unselect January and February and then click OK. You can see that the the sum of sales has automatically gone down. So this is an alternative to writing the formula as we had seen in the previous tutorial. Let's say you have now reselected all the months. So you have got 858 as the total sales value. What I was mentioning about refresh, let's say I change the sales value to 30 instead of 25. You will notice that the pivot table result does not change. So for that to change, since this is a snapshot, it is the snapshot of the previous value. So for this to change, you will have to go to Pivot Table Analyze and use the refresh button. When you click on refresh, it takes a fresh snapshot of the table and then updates all the values. Let's create another pivot table. So you can drag this month out and you can sum of sales out. Now it's again a blank. Now let's say you want to put month in columns and you want to put sales in values. So what you see here is now it has put all the months in the column and it has put the sales here in this format. You could also do the same for rows, and in this case it will look very similar to the original table as well. But suppose you had two different January sales figures. Let's say I put in here. Now again, the data has not got refreshed, so you will have to go to the pivot. You will have to click on the pivot somewhere for the tab and the ribbon to appear, and then you click on the refresh button, and now what you see here is it has consolidated and summarized the value. So you have got one January value where the sales is 80, which is effectively the sum of sales in your original table. Let's keep the table and the data like this. Now you see that the pivot has by default created a sum of sales. But suppose you want to do a count or an average. That is all possible in pivot table. So let's say you do a count. So if when you do a count, it will show you that there are two sales values for January. In the same way, if you are applying an average, it will do an average of all the sales. For the other months, it would remain the same value since it's just one value everywhere. But for January, you can see that it has taken an average of both the values. So in this way, you can uh, analyze the data sets. You can play with multiple ways of slicing and dicing your data to get to the right results and get the right insights.